The vast majority of seven-figure businesses that I see have built their business from organic reputation. They've prided themselves on doing good work, of trying to give great service, and for that reason they rely on word of mouth. And those relationships are usually connected to the founder. And they take a lot of pride in that, right? They wear it as a badge of honor because they're like, we don't market. We don't have to do any lead generation because opportunities just come, people refer, clients come back. But the unfortunate reality is all of those relationships and all that goodwill is tied to the founder. And secondly, all of that is also tied to the economy and the sentiment of the market. And we often see a lot of business owners who come to us that either want to transition to retirement and they realize that they don't have a saleable asset because of all of that tied to them, or the market changes, interest rates go up, sentiment shifts, and the phone stops ringing. And this is because they don't have a profitable marketing machine that allows them to grow their business in any economic time without the founder having to be involved. Yes. So first and foremost, I see so many business owners say, oh, marketing doesn't work for my business. And the reason for it is because they haven't actually taken the time to create a marketing strategy that allows them to produce the right opportunities to allow them to grow and scale their business. And I say this embarrassingly, I used to say that myself. Like, I've struggled with paid advertising and marketing for years that I couldn't get it to work, and it was because I didn't understand these fundamentals. I tried to abdicate responsibility to agencies and say, oh yeah, just generate me leads and make the phone ring. And I felt that way because I felt like I wasn't a marketer. So what's important is that people need to understand the strategy of marketing. Marketing is about controlling perception of your ideal market, okay? Everybody has a market, and that market is who are your ideal customers and clients, what are their pain points, their challenges, their goals, their aspirations, and how do you solve those problems, relieve those pain points and help them achieve their aspirations. The clearer you are on the people that you're trying to serve, the easier it is for you to talk to those pain points and be able to understand the buying behaviors of those individuals and where they are in the buying cycle. That is ultimately the basis and foundation of good marketing. Next, we want to create a funnel because ultimately for most businesses who rely on word of mouth, they are relying on people who are at the end of the buying cycle. Right? They've already made up their mind. They've been at a barbecue, chatting to someone and saying, oh, I'm looking to do my bathroom. Oh, go speak to Bill. He did my bathroom last year. He's amazing. That is often what we take for granted, but that's not the vast majority of the market. At any point in time, there's probably only 7 to 10% of the market that are in that buying zone. So that basically means like 92% of the market is not ready to buy right now. So our job is to create a funnel, a process that allows us to nurture those relationships until the vast majority of the market is ready to do business. And there is a framework in which we can go through with that. And then it's only then, once we've got the strategy and we've got the right funnel, that we can then add traffic. And there are only 4 ways that we can get traffic. One is paid. So we pay on Google or we pay on social media. We're paying for eyeballs, we're paying for attention. And the benefit is that while ever we're paying, we're getting eyeballs, but the reality is we also need to pay in order to get the eyeballs with no guarantee that it's going to turn into a customer, right? But it's very, very scalable because it's money in and hopefully money out. Second is organic. So that could be SEO, that could be blog posting, that could be social media. It could be lots of different things that we do organically. This is about creating content and value that ultimately is pushed out there to hopefully your ideal audience that we don't necessarily have to pay for. But you also need to be at the mercy of whatever the algorithms are going to show that content to your ideal market. Third is partnerships. So this is about finding other businesses or other people who already have relationships with your ideal customers and clients and are prepared to showcase you because you're non-competing. In other words, you can work together to serve that same client base. You build one relationship and they can potentially get you in front of hundreds or thousands. And then lastly is referrals. How do you turn your clients into raving fans and then get them to refer like crazy? So if we've got the right marketing strategy, we've got the right marketing funnel, and we've got the right traffic strategy, then we can consistently scale our business. Yes, so all businesses have what we call a golden goose. And the golden goose is essentially a product that is highly desired in the marketplace by your ideal customer or client, and that is something that you can make either a significant margin on or can be the Trojan horse into your other products or services. So for example, we had a client that had a solar and electrical business. And our golden goose was creating this very low cost solar package for residential homeowners in Perth. So we created an advertising campaign that was saying, get your solar and battery package for $6,000. And so for most people, it was an absolute no-brainer because they'd seen other comparable quotes of $10,000 or $15,000. Now, fundamentally, the $6,000 package was basically at cost, and it was for the cheaper types of solar panels and inverters and battery systems. But what it allowed us to do is to open the door and have a discovery conversation with that client to say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, so we have clients who have varying needs. This is our most basic package and this is what you get. And for some of our clients, it's amazing. It comes with great warranties and whatnot, but it's not the highest end. Like, let's have a conversation around what you'd like, your energy usage, so on and so forth. So that the golden goose got us in the door, and then it was the discovery and sales conversation that allowed us to have upsells and cross-sells, and then potentially get other electrical work on the back end. So with this particular strategy, we're able to help the client generate an 8 times return on ad spend and be able to book themselves out 3 months in advance. So the key thing to start is the avatar. Who are you serving? Like, who are we chasing? We want to be super specific. So in that case, it was residential homeowners in Perth. Then we work out what are the things that they are looking for. So for many people, energy costs are very expensive. However, the barrier to solar for some people is very expensive, right? Or perceived to be expensive. We created a package that was still sustainable for the business, but we realized was a door opener. And then we created a sales process that allowed us to facilitate how do we advance those conversations to sell hopefully a more comprehensive package to the people who want it. And then we create a profitable marketing machine. Yeah, marketing funnels are really a big beast, and there's so many ways to go about it, and there's also so many ways to fail with it. The people who are failing with this, they really don't understand the buyer journey of their customers and clients. And this is usually because they're trying to serve too many people, or they haven't taken enough time to understand the various stages of awareness. So we realize that there's multiple stages of awareness, where the first stage is unaware. Your people don't even realize they've got a problem. So imagine you come home this afternoon and somebody knocks on the door and says, hey, I want to change your roof. You need a new roof. You're going to go, fuck off. Like, why are you knocking on my door? There's nothing wrong with my roof. You're going to slam the door. But let's assume another scenario. You're problem aware. So you go home this afternoon and there's a leak in the lounge room. And you go, oh shit, that's not good. I don't know what the problem is exactly, so I'm going to start calling around for some quotes, right? Then we're solution aware. You've got 3 tradies who come and quote. One person says, oh, there's a tile that's moved. Another one says, actually, like, there's lots of other underlying issues. The full roof needs to be changed. You're starting to evaluate options so you can make an informed and educated decision. Then you get product aware. So you say, okay, well, look, I trust one person who says, okay, the roof can be patched, but we need to realize that the roof has a finite life. We can use this product and we can use this sealant and we can use this waterproofing and so on and so forth. You're now getting a deep understanding, and then now you're most aware. You can make a buying decision and spend your money. So the idea is we can segment that into what we call top of funnel, problem aware. What is a problem that your clients and customers are experiencing, and how do you give them a high value resource that appeals to that problem? So it could be, let's go back to a solar example, the residential homeowners guide in Perth to a high performance and affordable solar system that doesn't break the bank. We want a high value resource that speaks to the problem. Next, middle of funnel. How do we get people through that solution and product aware phase so we can educate them and hopefully become the best and most logical choice? The thing we like to use there is a scorecard. So complete our 40-point electrical and solar energy efficiency scorecard to see what size of system you need so you don't make silly mistakes. And then we've got our bottom of funnel, which is what we call our audition funnel. How do we take people who are really hot and then qualify them through a questionnaire to separate the diamonds from the rough? So what we want to do is we want to take people from window shopping, where they're, I'm just looking around for a quote, to take them through a diagnostic process where they say, hey, we don't work with everyone and we only have limited spots. Answer these 15 questions and we'll get back to you to let you know if we can help you. So this is what we find are the fundamental pieces of a high-performing funnel. And when we apply this with a great niche, we can make a lot of profit. I think the big challenge for most business owners trying to automate their sales process is they lose the human touch. And it's because, once again, they haven't thought about the customer experience and how that customer is going through that process. The idea of a sales process is really about answering 3 questions for our prospects. 1, do they trust you? 2, do they trust your process? And 3, do they trust themselves inside your process? If you can answer these 3 questions, then the vast majority of people will do business with you, right? And the people who don't are not the right customers anyway. So what we need to make sure is we understand, well, what is the sales process that we're trying to create? 1, what are the formal parts of the process? So is there a triage or a qualifying part of the process? So that should be a phone call. Have a conversation, ask a series of questions, qualify them in or out. Then there's a discovery process or a quoting process. Okay, that needs to be on site, right? And then there is a proposal and a sign up or a follow-up process. So those are the primary pillars. So automation must speed up the time between those stages and maximize the conversion between those stages. So when we think about it like that, it's like, okay, well, what things could I automate and implement that allow me to increase conversion and speed up that process? It could be reminders. It could be a follow-up process. It could be a rescheduling process if people don't show up. It could be a homework process of like, hey, prior to this call, here's what to expect. So these are the things that we can do that support the flagship components of your sales process to maximize conversion. Yeah, so we had a client who came to us a number of years ago who had a shed building business. And they were really, really good at what they did, but shed builders are a dime a dozen, right? And it's very, very hard in the marketplace to determine the difference between one shed builder and another, because frankly, they're all using stock images from the various product manufacturers anyway. So the reality is the vast majority of sheds are bought on price. You shop around, you get a few quotes, and then you go with the one that gave you the sharpest price. So we implemented the profitable marketing machine with this client, and what it allowed us to do is we focused primarily on man caves and man sheds. So we niched. We said, instead of going generic, if we can do sheds for everyone, let's do man caves. And what we realized is that these are affluent people that are usually business owners or quite successful. Kids have usually flown the coop or they've come into some money, and they've got to a point where they want to splurge on themselves. So it allowed us to then go through a really in-depth discovery process with them. Okay, like, talk to us about your man cave. How many cars are you going to have in there? Do you want to have a workshop? Is there a bar? And what that allowed us to do is to go from the dollars to the value. And then what that allowed us to then do is the decision was not made on price. So marketing can get you the leads, but unless we've got the sales process and the financial model that supports the lead generation is useless. And it was only once we got that foundation in place that we could amplify that with Facebook ads and Google ads. And this particular client was able to get a 12 times return on ad spend. So, and we've been able to do that at scale. So it just goes to show when we implement the right strategy, not only can we get consistency, but we can get scalable profitability. There are so many marketing metrics that you can track, and the unfortunate reality for most business owners is they don't track KPIs. It's too overwhelming. They try and track too many things, and for that reason, they end up tracking nothing. So if we really simplify it, the first thing that we need to understand is our cost of acquisition. So many people, when they talk about marketing, is they talk about cost per lead or cost per impressions, and these are all vanity metrics. It doesn't matter. So what is the cost per acquisition? It's like, what was my marketing spend? And how many clients did I get? So a marketing spend divided by the number of clients I got is my cost per acquisition. So let's say, for example, if I spent $10,000 on ads and I acquired 10 customers, my cost per acquisition is $1,000, okay? That's the first number. Second number we need to work out is the lifetime value of a customer. And lifetime is a long time. So what we usually say is, okay, what is the 12-month value of your customer? And for some businesses, they might only do business with you in one transaction. For other businesses, it might be recurring projects over 12 months, but let's work that out. So let's say, for example, you're an electrical contractor and an average client over 12 months is worth $5,000. And what that now allows us to work out is our return on ad spend, which is our lifetime value divided by our cost per acquisition. So in that case, it is now 5 to 1. And the importance there is this allows us to work out how much do I need to spend to produce this lifetime value and what ratio am I prepared to accept. For most of our clients, we start with a 4 to 1. So we want to make a 4 times LTV to our CPA. And ideally we want that to be as high as possible. But the key fundamental principle of marketing is that the business that can afford to spend the most to acquire a customer will always win. And where the vast majority of business owners fail is they try and spend the least amount of money possible. And for that reason, they end up acquiring no one and they fail with marketing. And they say, marketing doesn't work for me. Yeah. Clients want to refer. The issue is that most business owners don't teach their clients how to refer. And worse yet, they don't even ask them to refer. So what we try and do is we implement a cadence of regular feedback, because first and foremost, we need your clients to accept that you are amazing, right? Our first goal should be to turn our clients from clients into raving fans. So we need to have a review and a case study system. So what we usually implement for our clients is a series of automated emails that go out at various stages of the engagement that seek feedback. So first, there is a basic questionnaire. It's like, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you with our service? If they score an 8 or higher, it then has a conditional logic that it invites them to do a video case study. And if they say yes to that, it books it into the diary. If it says no, it says, would you mind leaving us a Google review? So that it's kind of like a downsell. And what we find is that when somebody's prepared to either do a video testimonial or to do a Google review, it is the perfect time to ask for referrals. So the next part of the automation is that once the case study is done or once the Google review is left, we then say, hey, thank you so much for your feedback. It means the world to us. This thing helps us attract more like-minded clients like you. On that note, is there anybody else that you know that would benefit from a conversation with us? ? And this now asks the question. And usually the clients will say, hey, yeah, sure. And what we then do is we can create a partner program. How do we give the clients the tools, the collateral, the resources that allow them to go and be advocates? Because what we've got to realize is that for clients, it's really awkward for them to refer. Like, it has to come up in conversation. Like, let's just paint this picture for a moment. You're at a barbecue and you're talking about the price of fish in Japan, and all of a sudden you just say, hey, I just got this solar system installed, you should use them. It's weird, right? In order for a referral to take place, it has to come up in conversation, and you've got to be top of mind and relevant, and they've got to be a big enough advocate to want to advocate for you. Instead, if you can create resources or value adds or things that they can distribute to their family and friends, that they can have more conversations with more people. So that could be vouchers or discount codes. That could be collateral, like books or resources. It could be invitations to webinars. Let's face it, most people don't want to come to a solar webinar, but it depends on the niche. But there are things and assets that we can create that magnify the opportunity for those customers to advocate for you and then to potentially get an incentive. So for many of our clients, we have a cashback incentive where we say, hey, if you introduce any clients, we'll give your referral $500 off and we'll give you $500. Like, there's other things we can do, because like in that first example, if your cost of acquisition is $1,000, why wouldn't you spend $1,000 as an incentive to your clients and customers when they refer to you? So this allows us to create a highly profitable referral system. And usually referrals convert at a much higher rate than any other source. Yeah, if you would have asked me this 6 or 7 years ago, I would have told you that it's a complete and utter waste of money, because I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to crack it, and I just was approaching it the wrong way. And in the last 3 or 4 years, we have consistently scaled our ad spend month on month and consistently scaled our business. Like, our business has now grown to a $25 million business, and we grow 30% quarter on quarter. And the vast majority of that comes from paid advertising. The reason for it is because organic algorithms are not predictable enough and can change. So relying on SEO or posting on social media, it's just can turn off like a light switch. Similarly, our prior strategy to this level of scale was referrals. We used to do referral partnerships, and we just couldn't find referral partners that could give us the referral volume that will allow us to continue to grow. So we outgrew the strategy. It was phenomenal for a long time, but once we got to a certain point, it was no longer a viable strategy. So paid ads is great because it is pay to play. And if you get it right, sure, you've got to pay up front, but our current ad strategy at scale, and we spend about $200,000 a month on ads ourselves. We spend over $1 million a month for all of our clients. And we generate on average a 6 to 8 times return on ad spend. So like, where else are you going to put $1 in and get $6 to $8 out? It can be a license to print money if you do it correctly with the right strategy. Yeah, look, I like to think we're doing it right. And I've got worked through the school of hard knocks with this. Our original strategy where we got it wrong was that we went for the jugular straight away. So our original strategy with paid ads was direct to the offer. It's like, hey, buy my shit. Or it's like, hey, come for a strategy session, to complete strangers. And then it's like, who's this weirdo? There was no goodwill. And I see this happen all of the time, that you see people that go direct offers. And for some people it does work, right? Because there is certainly a portion of the market that is prepared to opt in for these kinds of things with complete strangers. But let's face it, like, most Australians are pretty conservative and a little bit cynical. So there's so many ads out there that unless there's some level of trust or goodwill, most people aren't going to opt in, particularly affluent people. So when we got this right is when we started implementing the philosophies of Gary Vee. And I'm not a big fan of Gary Vee's hustle stuff, but I think his philosophies around marketing are world class. And his book, Jab, 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 Right Hook, was where everything shifted for me. It's the philosophy of give, 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 then take. So 80% of the content that we produce is value-based. This stuff that you guys are watching right now. My podcasts that you listen to, my books that you read. All of these things are about consumption, and it's about creating a bank of goodwill. That I want you to go, wow, that was valuable. I want you to implement it and get a result. I want you to solve a problem that was causing you hardship, because you're going to go, wow, that Jackson guy was like, that was great. And ultimately what we find is people go, wow, if I got this for free, imagine if I paid. So then when you finally do see my offers and you get into my funnel, then the bank of goodwill carries the trust. And of course, if it makes sense, then you do business with us. And this is the reason why we produce the returns that we do. It was like, gimme, 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 to take, 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 and hey, when the time is right, let's do business. And that was the fundamental difference. Yeah. The revenue plateau trap happens between 1 and 3 million for most businesses. I call this where businesses go to die. Because like up to 7 figures is still a lifestyle business. Like there's enough economy of scale to make good margins. There's still a lot of key person dependence, so it's still a job. But from that 1 to 3 million, we've got extra complexity, there's extra costs. The business needs more infrastructure, operational support, but they can't afford to pay for A-playing talent. So usually that comes at the cost of margins for the owner. And it's also at the point where the traditional streams like word of mouth and referrals and strategic partnerships just aren't enough. And what we help our clients do, and a lot of our clients come to us in that $1 to $3 million graveyard, and we help them implement our financial systems, but also the marketing systems that gets them to scale beyond that 3 million. Because you've got to make a decision. You've either got to shrink or you've got to grow. And you've got to get through that pain as quickly as possible. And we all go through it. I've been through it. All of our clients have been through it. And it's about having a proven system that gets you through there quickly. Yeah. So we had a client that had a hospitality business, and they'd never been in this business before. They didn't have a personal brand in the space. They weren't a chef or had any real experience. They were an operator. So they really had no choice but to implement a marketing machine that allowed them to grow the business, because they had nothing else to fall back on. And I sometimes think like being an expert technician is sometimes a double-edged sword, because you build that brand and reputation and that can trap you. They didn't have a choice. So we worked on building the profitable marketing machine for them. We helped them implement it, and we were able to grow the business from a $2.5 million value business to a $5 million business in 3 years. Now, what was really interesting is that business was a seasonal business that only operated in 3 months of the year. So it's like a pretty high risk business. Like if you get this wrong, then you really shoot yourself in the foot. And what was interesting is like it all come down to the same fundamentals. It's like, okay, what's the avatar that we're chasing? Who's the perfect customer and client for this business? We got really, really clear. Second, was like, okay, what's the funnel? Like, because it is a seasonal business, there's so much momentum that we can create throughout the year, like anticipation, that we can then build this bank of goodwill that as we start getting towards the season, when we open the floodgates, we want the demand to exceed the supply so much that they're kind of jumping over each other to be able to book their spot. And then amplifying with paid ads. It just allowed us that once we got that dialed in, we could put those ads in front of the perfect people. And it just allowed us to just feed the system. So when you implement the strategy, it works.